Hello and welcome back to the Shakey Sonnet Show. I am Tootight Lautrec, the drag laureate of the Sonnetarium, and here we are once again in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library which may or may not have some lions couchant lying defeated and dejected on the front steps. Oh my. Defeat and dejection in Sonnet 86, the last of the rival poet sonnets, which we will follow up with Sonnet 87 just for good measure, for more defeat and more dejection. But the bright spot, at least for us, is that these two sonnets wear their dejection very well. Whereas in Sonnets 84 and 85, our narrator was all tied up in knots of desperation, attempting to hold on to the last threads of his relationship, not to mention his youth and beauty and dignity. We come to Sonnet 86, a beautiful, well-wrought sonnet of dejection and defeat. Powerful, simple, clever, and clear. Let's look at it right away, because why dilly-dally when you've got a beautiful sonnet waiting for you? Sonnet 86, the last of the rival poet sonnets. Sonnet 86. Was it the proud full sail of his great verse, bound for the prize of all too precious you, that did my ripe thoughts in my brain inhearse, making their tomb the womb wherein they grew? Was it his spirit, by spirits taught to write above a mortal pitch, that struck me dead? No, neither he nor his compeers by night giving him aid my verse astonished. He nor that affable familiar ghost which nightly gulls him with intelligence as victors of my silence cannot boast. I was not sick of any fear from thence, but when your countenance filled up his line, then lacked I matter, that enfeebled mine. So, a very nice, very clear sonnet that is still, it's 4 quatrains and a couplet, but it really takes the form of a sestet plus an octet, 6 lines, and then the last 8 lines for the full force of the argument. And it begins with a question, and I'll have to say that you can follow Stephen Booth for more of this information, but the sexual connotations that are in here and do lend a certain sort of sting, an extra sting, to the literal sense of what's being said. So if you look at phrases, for instance, as the proud full sail, that could be an erection, bound for the prize of all too precious you, which pirates also call booty. And yes, I know, booty in the sexual sense is a much more modern term, but I'm throwing it out there because why not? I'm a filthy pig, and and if you can't have a little fun with it, then what are you doing here? My ripe thoughts, ripe as in proud or erect or prime for some fun. And their tomb the womb, which even though womb just happens to be a nice rhyme for tomb, it's also the spot where a lot of other action happens. So all these echo the boat envy that we saw in Sonnet 84, making it more than a little bit of verbal intercourse. So was it the proud full sail of his great verse, bound for the prize of all too precious you, that did my ripe thoughts in my brain inhearse? And that's a beautiful word right there, inhearse, that apparently Shakespeare made up. The idea of killing his thoughts and killing his words before they even occurred, making their tomb the womb wherein they grew. Beautiful. And the fact that it appears in a question and then it's followed up by a second question, it starts out as a question and then followed up by a second question, makes it seem like a bit of a harangue, because There's obviously rhetorical because the narrator does have an answer for these. And the second question comes in the second quatrain. Was it his spirit, again, spirits, sexual, was it his spirit by spirits taught to write above a mortal pitch that struck me dead? So was it his spirit that struck me dead, what he's been doing at night with you? Or was it a ghost? Because who knows, could it be anything but an unearthly being that tears you away from me or tears my words away from me? And then we get the answer. No. Neither he nor his compeers by night giving him aid, my verse astonished. It wasn't him or any of the other rivals that shut my verse up. He nor that affable familiar ghost which nightly gulls him with intelligence as victors of my silence cannot boast. I was not sick of any fear from thence. So none of those things were really what bothered me. He isn't the reason for my writer's block. And I would say that this whole rival sonnet series could also be called the writer's block series, because that's what we're talking about. This narrator is talking about my work, my poetry, my sonnets are not enough for you. And in fact, I've gone silent, or I can't quite concentrate on, on my boa, much less my verse, much less my sonnets. And it seems to be a bit of a writer's block that he's talking about here. The third quatrain, that affable familiar ghost, if you want a lot of boring reading, you can read all about people's theories about the affable familiar ghost. I don't really care. I think of it as simply, was it his spirit or these ideas that haunt me in the night? It wasn't any of those. None of those spirits that gorge him, this which nightly gulls him with intelligence, which gives him ideas as victors, none of those caused my silence. And then we get to the couplet. But when your countenance filled up his line, then lacked I matter, that enfeebled mine. And here we get to the nub of it. It's you. It's your fault. When I saw that he was writing about you, that's what did me in. And so here we have a nice little sonnet about writer's block caused by jealousy. And the rival, he's saying, isn't so great a poet that I was cowed into submission because of him. It's the fact that he was writing about you. And by implication, he couldn't write about you if you weren't a willing participant. If you hadn't presented yourself to him, we wouldn't be in this fine mess, now would we? I feel that this is a very canny development in this sonnet series. In the previous sonnets, we've seen the narrator grappling with his failure or failures as a poet, possibly as a lover. And then, in Sonnet 86, it's almost as if we see the ping go off in the narrator's head. Because it's the easiest thing in the world, the most human thing, to blame the rival, to blame the homewrecker, so to speak. Because when you blame the homewrecker, it lets the beloved off the hook. And here we see a turn from asking, what can the rival do better than I can, on the sheets of paper or between the sheets in your bed, to thinking, of course my beloved would still love me. You know, you do think, of course my beloved would love me if this homewrecker wasn't around. But then this moves to the stark realization that the rival wouldn't be playing at this game unless the beloved encouraged it. So it's the beloved's treachery that we're talking about here, and the narrator finally seems to be embracing it full force, and that has to sting. So it's a beautifully clear poem of dejection, and it's a little ping going off in the narrator's head, and it's followed perfectly, even though it's the very last of the rival poet sonnets, it's followed very nicely by Sonnet 87, because the very next word in this 154 series after this, the very next word is farewell. Sonnet 87. Which, before I begin, I will say that I have done a lip sync of this, of Kathleen Turner reciting Sonnet 87, and I love it in particular because I had my cousin Baroness Elsa von Avon do the honors for this in Kathleen Turner's voice, because I thought it required someone that looked like the Baroness von Schrader in The Sound of Music, that poignant moment when Georg decides to break it to her that the engagement is off, and they're standing out, looking out, and Maria's down there wandering around down by the water, and Baroness von Schrader says that she's going to go, and she looks out and she says, "I think somewhere out there is a young lady who will never be a nun." And I just love that moment. I love Baroness von Schrader. I love that look. And I thought I'd give my cousin Baroness Elsa von Avon a chance to embody it in Kathleen Turner's voice. Sonnet 87. Farewell. Thou art too dear for my possessing, and like enough thou knowest thy estimate. The charter of thy worth gives thee releasing. My bonds in thee are all determinate. For how do I hold thee but by thy granting? And for that riches where is my deserving? The cause of this fair gift in me is wanting, and so my patent back again is swerving. Thyself thou gavest, thy own worth then not knowing, or me, to whom thou gavest, else mistaking. So thy great gift, upon misprision growing, comes home again, on better judgment making. Thus have I had thee, as a dream doth flatter, in sleep a king, but waking no such matter. Oof. It's not an angry sonnet. It's really just a very sad sonnet. And all of these financial terms in here give it the feeling of a divorce court sort of thing. The too dear, meaning too cheap or inexpensive, or too expensive, I mean. To be dear is to be expensive. Thou knowest thy estimate, you know what you're worth. The charter of thy worth, there's worth again. My bonds in thee are all determinate. My bonds in thee, every hold that I had upon you is determinate, is at an end. And also in this sonnet, all of these rhymes are feminine rhymes, which means that they're the two syllables rhyme. Possessing, releasing, granting, deserving, wanting, mistaking, making, growing, knowing, swerving, deserving, wanting, granting. All of these are feminine rhymes with both syllables rhyming instead of just one syllable, except for lines 2 and 4. So when we get to my bonds in thee are all determinate, instead of that sing-songy gerund with the ing at the end, you get that hard T, and it really packs a punch with the word determinate. My hold on you is at an end. It's over. Really good. The second quatrain. For how do I hold thee but by thy granting? And hold meaning how do I hold on to this piece of land, or how do I keep possession of it? But also, how do I hold thee in my arms? How do I hold thee by thy granting? And for that riches, where is my deserving? And not just where is my deserving saying I'm not worthy, but also like, do I deserve this? The cause of this fair gift in me is wanting. So yeah, I don't deserve you because you're worth more than that, and I lack want. Want is another word for lack. I want whatever it is that you need, but also there is the sense of desiring with want as well. And then my patent back again is swerving. To me, it does sound like sexual contortions. My back again is swerving, but what it's really saying is I give you back to yourself, which is a pretty strong statement. The third quatrain, thou self thou gavest, thy own worth then not knowing, or me to whom thou gavest, else mistaking. So thy great gift upon misprision growing comes home again, on better judgment making. You gave yourself to me, not knowing your worth, or, and it's a big or, Mr. Big Boat, I made a mistake. I made a mistake believing that you loved me. I made a mistake believing that you weren't just out looking for the highest bidder. I made a mistake. I see that now. Very sad. Thus have I had a dream. Thus have I had thee as a dream doth flatter. In sleep a king, and here we have a male pronoun. In sleep a king, but waking so much no such matter. I dreamed you actually loved me. And then I woke up. I find this heartbreaking. I find it gorgeous and wretched and sad and wonderful and just wow. I think it's amazing. And it's a perfect way to follow up the last of the rival poet sonnets. So as far as a male or female is concerned, the he in Sonnet 86, oops, I missed my spot. Yes, which nightly gulls him with intelligence. The rival is a male, as we see. I was a king at the end of this, so it seems like the narrator is a male too. And as we've seen from the past, that we think that the beloved is a male too, but it could come out in any sort of combination if one tried to do it dramatically. And speaking of dramatically, where could this fit in? Is there a really good breakup scene, like a definitive breakup scene in Shakespeare? I don't know that I know of any. Maybe in Othello, but there isn't actually a breakup scene. It's more just a murder. And if you have an idea of where this might fit into some of Shakespeare's dramatic works, please let me know. Oh, my goodness. You would think that I had a ball and chain on the end of this, but it's just the way boas go. Narratively, while older lover gives his all to the younger lover, and the younger lover takes everything, even the poet's ability to write. Until they break up. And then we get this gem, 87. So if you got to get even, and this will do it as far as I'm concerned. So where do we go from here, I wonder? I should think that after such a devastating breakup or realization that we're in for something, maybe some wound-licking sonnets, maybe some groveling sonnets, maybe some insult slinging. That would be nice. It would be nice to get some scorching hate sonnets just to balance out the love sonnets that we've had in before. I really don't know because I'm a bad student and I haven't gotten that far yet. But stay tuned. Meanwhile, you know the drill. World, wonder, pay attention. Until we meet again, I am Tootight Lautrec. Mwah.